For more than a year and a half, the Federal Aviation Administration refused to allow any Boeing 737 MAX jets in the air after 346 people were killed in two separate crashes. After the deadly incidents, Boeing's former CEO defended the company's safety record.
When we design a system, understand that these airplanes are flown in the hands of pilots. And in some cases, our system safety analysis includes not only the engineering design, but also the actions that pilots would take as part of a failure scenario.
But a new book argues changes in corporate culture and government oversight led Boeing to prioritize profit over safety. It's called Flying Blind, the 737 MAX tragedy and the fall of Boeing. And author Peter Robison joins us now. He is also an investigative reporter for Bloomberg. Peter, thank you for joining us. So as we just heard, Boeing publicly defended the 737 MAX after those two deadly crashes. What was going on behind the scenes?
Well, the problem with that argument, as you heard Dennis Muhlenberg describe it, was that the pilot and the system works in tandem. But what Boeing did was they didn't tell the pilots about the system on the airplane, the software that ended up taking over the two airplanes and pushing the nose down. And soon after the first crash, pilots from American Airlines heatedly went to Boeing in meetings and said that was precisely the problem with the MAX, that the pilots had not been told about the software, but Dennis Muhlenberg and Boeing continued to defend the MAX.
So since those crashes, what have we learned about what went wrong with the plane's controls?
We learned that it was tied to a single sensor, and that if that sensor was faulty, if the pilot was not aware of what was happening, it would be very difficult to countermand. Boeing has since redesigned the software to prevent this particular failure, but what we've also learned is that the company just stuck its head in the sand between these two crashes when it was presented with credible comments by pilots and regulators that there was a problem with this system.
Now, Boeing has long prided itself on prioritizing safety over profits, but how did this the corporate culture become more cutthroat?
Well, it was something that was really gradual, and it was also surprising and sad to me as I researched the book. When Boeing started, it was a company that had really been turned into what it was in the jet age by people who came of age in World War II. It was a collective culture. It was heavily unionized, and over time that shifted, and the company became more about the bottom line. Its integrity also shifted. There was a crash in 1985 of a 747. It was a terrible accident, but within a month, Boeing took responsibility and said it was its own fault. It was the result of a bad repair job. Instead, after the MAX tragedy, after the first MAX crash, you heard explanations like the one Dennis Muhlenberg made in that clip you played, and even after the second crash, you heard a reluctance to ground the plane.
You also write about the cozy relationship between the FAA and Boeing to the extent that the government effectively outsourced some of its oversight to Boeing.
That also changed over years, and that really started in the 80s with the Reagan administration and the cuts in funding to government. Since that point, all federal agencies have been starved for funds. And at the FAA, it played out in this outsourcing of responsibilities to Boeing itself. And there was an expectation that the company would have an interest of its own to protect safety. But what ended up happening was that the profit motive overrode that.
Have there been changes to government oversight since these crashes?
There have been. There was a bipartisan aviation reform bill was passed in 2020 in which the FAA, some of the power to appoint these deputies at the manufacturer who oversee safety was returned to the FAA. So you had some positive steps. You've seen the FAA take a more active role in looking at the next Boeing jet that's coming out, the 777X. But at the same time, I've heard from people within the FAA who say that they fear that will pass, that they've had managers, and some of those managers have come from industry lobbying groups, and those managers say this is posing for the cameras.
What sort of compensation since those crashes have the families of the victims received?
The families have received steadily escalating offers of compensation from Boeing after the Ethiopia crash. There was a $100 million offer from Boeing that's gone up to $500 million. But all of the families that I've talked to have said that it's nothing can compensate for the loss of their family. As it's been described, the first mugging is the loss of your loved one, and the second mugging is the realization that it didn't have to happen.
What consequences did Boeing and its leaders face?
Boeing is required to pay what the Justice Department has described as a $2.5 billion fine. In practice, that's $1.7 billion to customers, which Boeing would have paid anyway. It's the $500 million to families, which also it was likely to pay. Its only criminal penalty is a $240 million fine, which you put in perspective with an $8 billion profit in the year before the first MAX crash. And you've only seen one lower-ranking pilot who's been criminally charged, while Dennis Muhlenberg is left with tens of millions of dollars.
Peter, before we let you go in about 30 seconds, what do you want readers to take away from your book?
That's a great question, and I would love people to read the book and to think of it in terms of how to maintain a safety culture at a company, and how to make sure that the need of any company to make a profit is not overridden by safety.
Okay, Peter Robison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, the new book is called Flying Blind: The 737 MAX Tragedy and the Fall of Boeing. You can read an excerpt on our website.